when you do something for over 50 years, you get pretty good at it. And when Shabana ji walks into a frame, you know that's an actor walking into the frame who actually has an experience of 50 years. And today I'm so blessed, and the studios are so blessed, because she walks into the studios of CNN News 18. Welcome, Shabana ji.
Shukriya. Thank you. Adab.
Ma'am, I want to ask you, just that body language that you have now, that's a winner's body language. And that body language can be attained only after a lifetime of hard work, smart work, work not just for yourself, but also for others. When you look into the mirror right now, with this huge career in social activities, you've been in the parliament, a huge repertoire of films, what is it that the mirror says to you?
That you need to try for more, you need to aspire for more, and I think for any artist, if you feel you've attained it all, then that is the beginning of the end. So I think you can never, I mean, there can be bouts of satisfaction, but there can never be place for smugness. And so I see myself as an eternal student, and I'm hoping that I can learn from all experiences that I can get, the good and the bad.
How wonderful. And you're 72 and you're saying that.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yes.
Amazing. I wish I could say the same thing when I'm 72 years of age, because as I told her, as far as I can remember, there was a movie called मैं माधुरी दीक्षित बनना चाहती हूँ. When I was 15, मैं शबाना आज़मी बनना चाहती थी.
Lovely.
And then I was just 21 or 22 when I first walked into your house, and that was 2004 maybe, when Kaifi Saab's anniversary, birth anniversary, or death anniversary, kuch to tha jiske liye I had walked into your house, and that day a new world had opened up to me.
How lovely.
It was
Wow.
a beautiful world. You know why? Because where a man and a woman were actually equal, where there were no boundaries of age, because Shaukat Appa, your mother, was this lively, a woman with white hair, but the voice had so much liveliness in her tone.
Yeah.
And I remember narrating or reciting my poem to you, and you asked Shaukat Appa to come out, and you said, "Arey Ammi, आइए देखिए, छोटी सी लड़की है और नज़में लिखती है." And then she was so happy seeing a young girl just write poems. That was, I can assure you that day had changed my life, and that day actually gave me some purpose in my life. I didn't know what at that time, but now I know what was the purpose.
But you know, I am so happy to hear that, because for that my mother was the natural way of being. She was so encouraging of young talent. In fact, I remember Janki Kutir was a place where all kinds of strugglers were always coming, and whether it was Abba or Mummy, they were always encouraging. You know, it was a place like when I was straight out of the institute, then a lot of my institute friends who had no place to stay in Bombay would come and be with us. Some of them would be house guests, like Zarina Wahab, like Kamaljeet Singh, and a whole lot of them. But Mithun Chakravarti, let me tell you, he was very conscious of the fact that he had jutting teeth. So he used to always smile like that, and he was also conscious of the fact that he had dark skin. This in spite of the fact that he had worked at the institute and a lot of those insecurities had gone. But I really give it to my parents, and particularly my mother, who encouraged him so much, and she made him drop her inhibitions. That was something I really appreciate.
How nice.
About her.
That is actually one really very beautiful quality about Janki Kutir. I mean, Janki Kutir is this one place in Juhu you would know as that place where the most vibrant Holi is played in Mumbai, and that is the house of Akhtars, originally belonging to Kaifi Azmi Saab.
No, it's the house of Azmis. Please don't call it Akhtar. Akhtars have
Exactly,
come in.
that's what I corrected. Actually, it was originally the house of your father, Mr. Kaifi Azmi. And उसकी भी बड़ी कहानियाँ सुनी हैं. मुझे याद है कि मुंबई में ऐसा लगा था कि थोड़ा कम्युनल टेंशन होने वाला है. एंड मैंने आपकी किताब में पढ़ा था दैट कैफी साहब वाज आस्क्ड टू लीव द हाउस or at least lock the house and sit inside. And he said, no, I shall never lock my house, and I shall never leave my house, and I'll sit here, right here in this dalan open veranda, and I'll see what happens. And nothing, of course, had happened. So,
but you know, there was also this thing about Abba, because हमारे घर पे वहाँ everybody from the Madanpura workers to the governors of various states would come, and of course all these great poets like Josh Malihabadi and Firaq Gorakhpuri and Faiz and all that, and it was always an open house. So when I started working in films, because we used to stay right opposite Prithvi Theatre, people would find very easy access into the house, and they would come in. And for me, that was quite disconcerting at one point. But he said, "नहीं बेटे, मेरे घर में कभी कोई चौकीदार किसी को रोकेगा नहीं. You better get used to this kind of thing." And so with time, one got used to the fact. And so in fact, you know, what to me touched me most is when Abba passed away, then, I mean, the chief minister, the governor, everybody came. But I saw in a corner a sort of middle-aged woman standing and looking quite uncertain. So I sent somebody and I said, "Who's that?" So she says, "I want to come and meet me." So I said, "Huh, send her." And she started crying. My father's body was still there. And she said, "You have no idea how this man has changed my life." And I said, "So what is it?" So she said, "I had come as a nayi naveli bahu to this place just outside Janki Kutir, और वो छोटे सी किराने की दुकान थी. तो वो नई नवेली बहू आई थी और उसको इतना लंबा घूंघट काढ़ना पड़ता था. तो when Abba went there, you know, he told his father-in-law कि ये लड़की आपकी कितना काम करती है, अगर इतनी गर्मी में वो इतना लंबा घूंघट काढ़ के खड़ी रहती है, आप ऐसा करिए कि इसका घूंघट उठवा दीजिए, क्योंकि ये ज़्यादा अच्छी तरह से काम करेगी और आपको ज़्यादा फ़ायदा होगा." And she said that transformed my life. Because when that happened, and had it not been for Kaifi Saab, that freedom would have never come my way. So he was somebody who I constantly hear stories about how he brought about change.
Small and big changes.
Yes, changes. I mean, so he had a view of the world and all that, but in everyday life, I've still continued to meet people who say that either it was my mother or my father who brought about a change in their
Absolutely.
lives.
और ये कहने में कितनी छोटी सी बात लगती है, but somebody actually wrote a beautiful couplet on it कि तेरे माथे पे ये आंचल क्या खूब है, लेकिन तू इस आंचल से परचम बना लेती तो अच्छा.
मजाज का शेर.
मजाज का साहब का शेर है. So yeah, I mean, one, you've been very lucky that you were born in such a great family.
I chose my parents well.
Very wisely. Let's talk about your films, and let's talk backwards. We all have known your work from the days of FTII till now, but I watched a movie called What's Love Got to Do With It by Shekhar Kapoor. I was also told that you've just acted in a web series called Halo by Steven Spielberg, and you've been out and about these days working in many international projects. Talk about the international projects that you've been doing right now, which you've been doing for the last 30 years, and how this travel, this artistic travel, has changed your life and you as a talent.
I think it is essential. Travel is what opens up your mind. And I think as the world shrinks and becomes a global village, it is very important for us to break boundaries and say what we need to do is, you know, make people understand cultures within their own paradigms and not necessarily imposed on the East by the West.
Right.
So for a long time it was just one way, but now as the world has opened up, we are getting an opportunity to exhibit our talent there also. And when you travel, and especially when you work abroad, it just opens up your mind. In the beginning it can get quite daunting,
A little,
but then after that, now particularly, I have seen that the world as a microcosm exists in international films more than anywhere, you know, because you have people in the crew who are from all parts of the world. You have people now even as in the cast who are from various parts of the world, and so that was something I really enjoyed on on Halo. The fact that I played Margaret Parangosky and Admiral Margaret Parangosky, but I had to make absolutely no attempt to look anything other than what I look. So the color of my hair wasn't changed. I wasn't wearing blue eyes.
Which movie is this?
This is Halo,
This
the web
Halo.
series, Steven Spielberg's Halo. And what it did along with me being completely comfortable in the way I speak English. So we had a Korean actor, we had a Canadian actor, we had black actors, and all of them were speaking in their own
Accents.
dictions.
Yeah.
And what it was doing was really breaking through a long-term effort by Asian actors
To
to
try to
say
be like,
that
yeah.
why should we be cast only because of our ethnicity? Why can't the best roles come our way as well? And so now the beginnings of that you are seeing, and that is very, very, very heartening. But what I find interesting, Atika, is that it's not only as if we learn from them. They are
They
learning
learn
from us also. Because remember, they have set systems. But if anything goes wrong in that, they're left completely at sea. हम लोग तो हमारे resources इतनी कम होते हैं, इतना जुगाड़ करते रहते हैं कि we are unfazed. कुछ भी हो जाए, but कर लेते हैं, we manage. So I think we learn from each other, which is the way it should be.
And what about the other film? So it's What Love Got to Do with It is a British production directed by Shekhar Kapoor. There is a Pakistani actor, Sajal Ali. There is a British actress, Emma Thompson. There's you and this huge ensemble cast. And imagine the topic of the film is arranged marriages, which they choose to call assisted marriage. And that also opens up a huge Pandora's box. In fact, I was in conversation with Shekhar Kapoor Saab, and I told him, listen, I have to tell you, I have a friend from the special forces. He went through a very bitter divorce, Shabana ji. And he told me, देखो जी, मेरे के समझ में आ गया है, ये आदमी और औरत जो है ना, ये सड़क के दो किनारे हैं, ये मिलने के नहीं है. वो दिन में एक बार आओ मिलो लेकिन वापस अपने अपने घर चले जाओ.
He's a person after my own heart, because I have been saying that women should all live together and men should visit them. That would be the ideal situation. I'd like to meet this friend of yours. Bhakti, I mean it seriously.
देखो ये नेचर के विरुद्ध चलने वाली बात है. हमको इससे कोई इत्तेफाक नहीं है. कैसी बात कर रही हैं आप? वैसी इतनी सिंगल औरतें हैं, आप और ऐसी बातें करके जो है तो नेल इन द कॉफिन हो जाएगा.
मैं थोड़ी कह रही हूँ कि उनकी जिंदगी से मर्द निकाल लो. मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि अपनी कन्वीनियंस पे वुमेन prefer to be with each other. They have much more in common with each other. आप सोचिए इसके बारे में. I really think there is some revolution that is possible.
पड़ेगा, एक साथ ही रहना पड़ेगा. जिससे अभी हम भाग रहे हैं. So that makes me actually, and this is a conversation I would love, I like to have with various people from all walks of life, different kind of ages, background and experiences. What is your take on it? In fact, while you were just coming to the office, at that time also we had this discussion. What do you think about marriages losing their relevance? What do you have to say about that? I am single, but you've been in a very successful marriage. What is your take on marriage?
You know, I think that there is nothing more nurturing than having a good marriage.
A good marriage.
There is nothing more nurturing than that, and nothing more devastating than a bad marriage. And but it also comes, you know, from a constant attempt at working at your marriage. Most times what happens is that you work to please each other during the romance. The minute you get married, you start taking each other for granted, you stop listening to the other person, and you forget that actually marriage is about very mundane things. It's about deciding khana kya pakna chahiye. It's about very mundane things. So the romance is the first thing that goes running out of the window. Now, अब आप अपना दिल पकड़ के बैठ जाएं कि रोमांस तो है ही नहीं मेरी जिंदगी में, या अल्लाह मेरे साथ क्या हुआ. तो these are unrealistic expectations. मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि हमारे समाज में शादी से क्या एक्सपेक्टेशन होना चाहिए, इसके लिए हमको प्रिपेयर ही नहीं किया जाता है।
Exactly.
और आज के माहौल में जब लड़की इंडिपेंडेंट होती जा रही है एंड शी हैज is wanting for herself space where her individuality is respected and also celebrated, what happens is in many situations I see that the woman has crossed that bridge
Yeah.
and she is asking for her place, but the man hasn't changed,
Hasn't changed.
because he has been brought up with
Yeah.
a sense of entitlement
Yeah.
and privilege,
Yeah.
and so it becomes very difficult for him to negotiate that new relationship. And I think that's why it is extremely important that the whole concept of masculinity should be redefined.
Yeah.
And Farhan is doing that through his organization Mard.
Mard.
Because what he's saying is, why does masculinity only be about power and physical strength and six-pack abs and all that? Why isn't it also about gentleness and consideration and compassion and all of that? In fact, I do think that these boxes that we are put in from the time we are born, कि लड़की को ऐसे behave करना चाहिए और लड़के को ऐसे behave करना चाहिए, वही
गलत है,
फसाद की जड़ है।
बिल्कुल।
क्योंकि actually to be a complete person, you need to have the yin and the yang perfectly balanced, you know. So if we can work towards a society that encourages that and doesn't insist that the girl should be in a pink colored room and have dolls and the boy should be given guns and blue, ऐसा सब ये सब उठा के फेंक देना चाहिए. What is so shameful about a young boy wanting to dance?
True.
What? उसमें इतनी शर्म की क्या बात है?
Yeah.
ये क्या चक्कर है? So we have to pull out of that mindset.
Yeah, and thankfully with the advent of social media, there are a lot of initiatives being taken in this regard. Farhan Akhtar's this initiative called Mard stands for Men Against Rape and Discrimination. There are a couple of TV series made on this, serials made on this. So thankfully we're in the right direction, but still a very long way to go before we actually.
अभी मंजिलें और
बहुत और भी हैं. और मुझे तो हमेशा कैफी साहब की वो लाइनें याद आती है कि जिंदगी जहद में है, सब्र के काबू में नहीं, जन्नत एक और है जो मर्द के पहलू में नहीं, उसकी आज़ाद रविश पर ही मचलना है तुझे, उठ मेरी जान मेरे साथ ही चलना है तुझे. I remember Shabana ji, a couple of 3 to 4 years ago, शौकत आपा का जब देहांत हुआ था, इंतकाल हुआ था, तो आपने एक शोक, जैसे शोक सभा रखी जाती है, वो शोक सभा नहीं, आपने एक सेलिब्रेशन का एक दिन रखा था. I was also part of it. In fact, मैं तो रो रही थी आपसे मिलके और आप हंस रही थी. And it was such a, and in fact that is also one very necessary change that the society needs, is to stop mourning people and and to begin celebrating people what they did, I mean the good things that they did. And you remembered her laughters and the work that she did and her videos where she was laughing. Talk about that. I mean that is such a thing that differentiates your family with other families.
Well, you know, she had lived such a full life and she was a person with such spirit that it was not just my decision, it was also Baba's decision and Tanvi's decision and Javed's, that we should celebrate this completely full-blooded person that we knew. And in fact, I remember that when we celebrated her and talked about all the funny incidents that she had come across and stuff like that, I remember Wahida Rahman ji, who had come, told me, जब मैं गुजर जाऊंगी तो मेरे लिए भी ऐसे ही करना.
Oh, really? She said that? Yeah. Tell me, as a person gets older, what are the differences of personality that a person experiences when he is 20 or 30, 40, 50, when you were a 20-year-old, and compare that with you when you were 30, and then compare that with yourself when you were 40 and then 50 and then 60 and now at 72? What are the changes that you have found in yourself?
Well, when I was younger, I was more impetuous, and then when I was very strongly involved with my activism, particularly with the slum dwellers and with women, I had such strong opinions that I would just not listen to the other person. I was so absolutely convinced that my way was the only way. Now, as an older person, I am willing and I feel it is imperative that I must listen to what somebody I consider my adversary is saying. क्योंकि अगर मैं सुनूंगी ही नहीं तो फिर कैसे ये मतलब do you want to be part of the problem or do you want to be part of the solution? And if you want to be part of the solution, then you have to walk 2 steps ahead to make your adversary walk at least 1 step forward. So I feel that I am less impetuous. And you know, लोग कहते हैं कि if you become less impetuous, then you're no longer the spontaneous self you were.
No.
But you can't be spontaneous at 70 plus. You have to let life's experiences mold you, change your thinking, and make adjustments to new realities which you keep confronting.
Let's revisit your career. As these pictures come by and go, look at this one. This is from Earth, right? Talk about this phase of your life. This one, oh, now we have taken a jump of 20 years right now. Let's talk about this phase. This was 80s. You were working sometimes for free for your contemporaries who were all a part of this movement of nurturing the parallel cinema. What was that phase like? Take us through the some of the memories of those times.
See, at that point, I was so immersed in it that I never put myself apart and saw myself separately, where I could start analyzing it. I was in the thick of things, you know. I mean, imagine in around the same years, I did Arth, I did Khandar, I did Par, I did Avatar, I did so many films of the Masoom.
How many movies were you working at the same time? Were you doing 3 shifts in those
12.
days? 12?
12
movies at the same
12
time?
films. It was crazy. It was crazy. और मुझे ये याद है कि it was crazy because we used to do one shift from 7 to 2 and on another film from 2 to 10. So there was a time when I was working with Sanjeev Kumar in a film by Gulzar Saab called Namkeen, and in the evening I was working in a film called Jwalamukhi with Prakash Mehra and Shatrughan Sinha. तो ये तो लिखा हुआ था कि 7 बजे की शिफ्ट है, लेकिन संजीव कुमार फिल्म सिटी में 12:30 बजे से पहले नहीं पहुंचे.
अच्छा, संजीव साहब भी?
संजीव साहब बिल्कुल लेट लतीफ नंबर 1. और फिर 2 बजे की शिफ्ट में शत्रुघ्न सिन्हा 5-5:30 बजे से पहले नहीं पहुंचेंगे. तो और we used to have continuous shooting, so I used to get very tired. And you know, I had to, because I had to change my makeup, I had to do different things. There were 2 completely different kinds of park.
You had to come into red lipsticks and brighter makeup and brighter colors.
And in Namkeen there was no makeup at all. So I used to have this choice that when I moved from Film City to Filmistan, where these 2 films were happening, should I sleep or should I eat? Us waqt mein. So sometimes I would eat and sometimes I would sleep. But it was so completely hectic.
Chock-a-block,
But my mother said something to me. I said, Mummy, Sanjeev Kumar is never going to come on time. Please let me sleep. And she said, no, bete, your commitment is not to Sanjeev Kumar. It is to your producer. And your producer has kept a 7 to 2 shift. तो आपको जाना तो पड़ेगा. आप वहाँ जाके सो जाओ भले, but you must reach there. So these are the kind of disciplines which I've internalized, you know. And I remember Wahida Rahman at one point had told me that, you know, nobody realizes that working in films, the quality that you require the most is patience.
Yeah.
Because you have to wait for endless endless hours.
right.
And if you start getting frustrated,
True.
you're the only one who's going to suffer. And I remember this so clearly. मेरे दिमाग में इसका impression हुआ था. तो मैं I had become totally and completely accepting of the fact कि wait करना
करना है.
ये मेरे हाँ
यही
this is part of my work discipline and I cannot mourn about it. So I used to take my work on the set.
Take
I
your
used to do
books,
all
take
the other
your-
things and all that, but it didn't cause me frustration, and which I
Frustration,
think at that point in my career it was very, very important. What is the point in getting really angry so that
Exactly,
at
when
that
you can't do
time
anything about
you're
it.
not, yeah, and at that time if you aren't in the moment
Yeah.
of what is required, you're harming only yourself.
Yeah, but weren't you also inspired by Mr. Bachchan, because in those times उनके भी वक्त पे आने के चर्चे बहुत ज़्यादा थे, and you were how was the relationship with Mr. Bachchan? You worked together also in several projects.
Bachchan, even till today, is the first person to arrive on the set. So, Bachchan Saab and Shashi Kapoor, these were the two people who would just आप अपनी घड़ी ठीक
Time
कर
कर
सकते
सकते
थे उनके आने के लिए. Now, these were people you admired, and then it, you know, it is to you whom you choose to emulate.
Right.
Is it somebody who lives by the rule book, or somebody who doesn't care for it?
Right.
So the kind of person I was, obviously, that's what I would admire. Amitabh Bachchan, I haven't worked so much with really, because I did Amar Akbar Anthony,
Amar
in which I
Akbar
wasn't
Anthony,
opposite
not-
him, and
yeah.
Parvarish, but we had a great time in Parvarish, and then Main Azad Hoon, which was written by Javed Saab, and in fact is the only film in which I've worked which has been written by
Javed Saab.
Javed. And मुझे एक बहुत interesting moment याद है कि काफ़ी formal सा रिश्ता है अमिताभ और मेरा उस फिल्म में, और वो मुझे मेम साहब कहते हैं. And at one point I said, मैं मेम साहब नहीं हूँ, मेरा नाम है. And he says, Subhashni. Amitabh told me, this is the highest romantic point given Javed Akhtar's writing. तो give it your all, क्योंकि इससे बाद अगर आप expect करते हैं कि कोई और romantic moment आएगा, कुछ नहीं है. I laughed so much. He said, बस ये
So that
बोल दिया
was a
उसने.
romantic. There
The
was a romantic tone in that scene.
Height of romance.
Oh my
Height.
God!
Height
I'm
of romance.
actually reminded of that scene from Bazaar. सुनो, कहीं मुलाकात हो गई तो पहचान लोगी मुझे, सलाम जरूर करूंगी. मतलब इससे ज्यादा एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्या हो सकता है कि भाई देखने वाला खुद समझ जाए, हम इतना ही आपको दे सकते हैं. Who were your favorite directors that you had loved working with?
Mahesh Bhatt.
Of course.
Mahesh Bhatt it was an experience. What he did for me in Earth, because you know, Earth became the film that continues to be the hallmark of my career, because
Totally.
even now I have so many women who come to meet me and they say that Earth is the film what transformed
Yeah,
their lives
yeah.
and gave them strength. And you know, all actors aspire for that one role that they will always be
Yeah.
remembered by. Like Nargis is remembered for
Mother India.
Mother India and so on, and so I'm remembered by Earth, and for
yeah.
that I'm extremely grateful to Mahesh. But there was some magic that happened. And Mahesh is capable of really making the actor churn her insides
Yeah.
out, you know. And
Yeah.
sometimes he'll talk to you a lot, and sometimes he'll just give you one particular word. Now, I remember that lovely song, Jhuki Jhuki Si Nazar, Beqarar Hai Ki Nahi, we were shooting it over 3 days. So, obviously, a time came when I dried up from inside. And that was a very important moment, because I have a sheaf of papers in my hand, and Raj Kiran looks at it, and they happen to be my divorce papers, which are given to me by my husband Kulbhushan on my birthday. So I had dried up by then, and there was a very tight close-up of mine, and I remember just before the clap went, Mahesh shouted and said, "Look exposed."
Oh.
It was the perfect word that he could have used. And if you
Yeah.
now see my immediate close-up there, it is just as if I've been stripped naked.
Yeah.
And it was because he was able to just give me this
Give that
one word.
Exposed.
So, exposed, completely exposed.
Wow.
So, he has been really, really somebody that I think has brought out something with me. But I've been very fortunate. I mean, I've worked with Chab Benegal, I've worked with Satyajit Ray, I've worked with Mrinal Sen, Aparna Sen, Gautam Ghosh, Tapan Sinha, Lake Tandon.
Lake Tandon.
Lake Tandon was a very, very good actor, a very good director for actors, and then of course Shekhar Kapoor.
Yeah.
So there are lots, and I've been very, very fortunate to work, to get some very fantastic roles, and also to have worked with very good writers and very good directors.
But I'm sure it's not, it hasn't happened on its own. Consider somebody who's an actor in these times, and if you were to give him an advice, if he's looking forward to working with all the good directors, what's the way to find work with good directors? Just by being good at your work, or there are other ways also?
You have to figure out that there are some films which are not within the box office formula. Not to say that the box office formula
Is bad
guarantees
or, yeah.
success,
Fine, yeah.
but then those films will have a struggle to be exhibited. Okay? What you have to do then, decide how can you help, apart from giving a good performance, is to reduce your price.
Right.
Is to reduce your price, to make your dates available, all of that. I remember my secretary used to get so upset with me because when I was shooting for Mandi, I had given 40 days at a stretch to Shyam Benegal. And he told me, what he pays you for the film is not even 1/4 of the signing amount that you're getting for another film. So
Right.
why don't you allow me to break it? And I said, nahi, this is non-negotiable, isko aap chhod do. And you know, Atika, there have been instances ke hum to apni taraf se paise dete the. We used to give money, matlab I remember Baburam Ishara ke paas paise nahi the to do a schedule, and Sanjeev Kumar and I contributed money and said, ye agle 2 din ki shooting aap kar lo. So there was a spirit, there was you know, a desire to do something larger than just yourself. And I
Yourself.
think that is very important. You have to definitely, you know, there's no point in going on moaning and groaning and say pay parity. Of course, pay parity is very
Yeah.
important. But the fact is that you have to see that you are in the beginning of that path from where pay parity will finally be a reality. In order to do that, you will have to create an ecosystem in which films with female leads
Must
will
work.
start becoming successful.
Right.
So I think that's not a waste of time. That is just creating the
Absolutely.
paths. Na?
Yeah.
That's if what we understand, then tomorrow hopefully there will be pay parity as well.
Absolutely. What has been the role of media in your career, and has there ever been a strained relationship between you and media? Like for example, Mr. Bachchan had cut off media for a long time in his career. Several other actors have had a on and off relationship with media, and there were several reports where parallels were drawn between you and Smita Patil. How much of that was actually true, and did that actually sometimes get to your head and you felt like, as an actor, you must have also felt a little repulsive sometimes, ki enough of it?
Nahi,
I know many actor friends of mine go through that.
No, but there was some truth to it. There was some truth to it. Smita and I treated each other like rivals, but then द मीडिया ने उसको चढ़ा
ज़्यादा।
बढ़ा के थोड़ा सा तड़का मिर्च लगाकर उसको और बढ़ाया, लेकिन I wouldn't blame it entirely on the media. It was not fictitious.
Okay.
There was some basis to it, and then it was exaggerated. But I feel that I did say some uncharitable things about her, which I regret. I shouldn't have said it. But for me, what's very important is that I have a very good relationship. I had a very good relationship with Smita Patil's parents, with the sisters, and now with
Son.
Prateek. तो वो मुझे अच्छा लगता है.
So tell me, उड़ती चिड़िया को पकड़ना आसान है लेकिन आपको पकड़ना बड़ा मुश्किल होता है. And you are, touch wood, very busy these days. You know, you with all these shooting schedules and all. Tell me what your kitty looks like. What are the films that you're doing right now? How do you find a balance between international and national projects? How much of you are in Mumbai? How much abroad? What's happening at work?
For the last 3 years, I was abroad a lot because I was working on Halo. I have just finished the second season of Halo, which will now only be released, I think, end of the year. So, उससे मुझे थोड़ा सा respite मिला है.
Okay.
Now, my next release will be Rocky और रानी की प्रेम कहानी, Karan Johar's film, and then Ghumar, which is Balki's film, and then Imaginary Rain, Vikas Khanna ki. And I'm going to start a web series that is produced by Excel, by Shibani Dandekar, called Dabba Cartel.
Dabba Cartel.
Yeah. और उसके साथ फिर then I'm also doing my theatre and stuff like that. तो ये सब तो चलता ही रहता है.
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, you'll talk about theatre, but I'm reminded of that time, Shabana ji, when you were actually grievously hurt. I had come to, in that accident, I had come to the hospital, and one of your very close, and I was, मुझे पता नहीं क्या हो जाता है जब आपको कुछ होता है. मैं बहुत घबराई हुई थी. जैसे कि मैं अम्मी की डेथ पे बहुत रो रही थी, लेकिन आप हंस रही थी. मैं आपके एक्सीडेंट पे भी रो रही थी. मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा था क्या होगा क्या होगा. आपकी एक फ्रेंड ने मुझे ऐसे पकड़ा, बोला, नो वन कैन किल हर, नथिंग कैन किल हर. रोना बंद करो, कुछ नहीं होगा. So that is also something people can learn from your life. Where does that fun streak of your life, which is also very defined when it comes to carrying on in life, no matter what comes your way, where does that come from?
From my parents, I think largely from my parents, because they taught me to speak my mind, not for effect. Only if I believed in something, then they said you should have the courage to be able to speak my mind. So I think it's just that I've led such a full life, and from that comes this. But also I have a very strong support system. I have a very strong support system in my husband, my family, my friends, this small group of people. I think that's very important to have a strong support group, because obviously there are going to be times when you're going to be down and when you need that support. But that can only come if you are also willing to give of yourself and give that support to them. ये नहीं हो सकता कि क्योंकि मैं बहुत बिजी हूँ तो मैं आपके लिए वक्त नहीं बना सकती. That can't happen, and especially people who are not in this profession. So actually my closest circle of friends are still friends from school and from college. We've had these long relationships, and the time that I really enjoy myself is, you know, we've got a girls gang and we go off for these holidays. So we went off to Italy, and we go off to various places. And I remember when we first started going together, we were all plus 60 when we decided to go to Italy. So the travel agent who was doing our bookings, usko, one of my friends said, Ke, we are all 60 plus. He said, Baap re baap. Our group is only called Baap re baap after that. but it's very comforting and very, very nice to have
Wonderful.
that.
How come you've never directed a film?
It's much easier being an actor. You get so spoiled when you get so spoiled when you're an actor. Everybody is sort of working to make you do your best and all that. Director को कितना करना पड़ता है, मगर मुझे जो चीज़ daunt करती है सबसे ज़्यादा. I mean, for a long time people have told me, why don't you direct a film? Why don't you direct a film? मगर मुझे जो सबसे ज़्यादा challenging लगती है, बात वो ये है कि see, when you are a director, then you want to bring on board the most talented people in their particular field. So you want the best cinematographer, you want the best editor, you want the best actor, the best editor, etc. How do you manage to bring them all on board with your vision? Because obviously they will want to contribute. They're not just there robots to do what you want. They're going to contribute. So sometimes when they contribute, then are you open enough to accept that मेहनत का काम है, अभी तक मुझे काम मिल रहा है तो कर यही करूं.
मेहनत तो आप बहुत करती हैं. What's happening at Mijwa?
Oh, it's doing very well, mashallah.
Yeah,
mashallah, it's doing very, very well. Just now, for instance, I mean, it's
Mukesh
because
Ambani's cultural
it's really thanks to Manish Malhotra, because everywhere that we've reached in terms of the chicken curry has been due to Manish Malhotra. Recently, Jennifer Aniston wore clothes that were done in Mijwa. And just now at the Nita Mukesh Ambani Cultural Center at the textile exhibition, there is this fantastic thing that Deepika Padukone had worn for the Mijwa
we saw that.
Show. And now we've got, we are doing, it's also moving in the academic world, and so we are working with universities and doing workshops over there. So it's really, really doing very, very well in all its various forms. इतना छोटा सा गांव है, मगर उसमें बहुत सारी चीजें उन्होंने की हैं. I'm very, very happy with that.
I remember कैफी साहब एक कोई जुमला था कि तुम अपना काम करते रहो, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि चेंज तुम्हारी ज़िंदगी में आए, हो सकता है उसके बाद भी आए, लेकिन काम करना मत छोड़ो.
My father was always like that. Nothing deterred him, but that's very well for him to want nothing to deter him. But had it not been for my mother's constant companionship and to really constantly, he used to want to travel to the most remote parts of the world, जहाँ के train के अलावा आप जा ही नहीं सकते. And it's really to my mother's credit that she went with him everywhere and she made it possible. So एक मरतबा मैंने अब्बा से पूछा था कि how would you describe mummy? And he said वो साथी बहुत अच्छी है.
Hi. What's happening in theatre? तुम्हारी अमृता, कैफी और मैं, ये तो आपके plays मैंने न जाने कितनी बार देखे हैं.
Broken Images.
Then,
then I worked at the National Theatre in London, which is what you dream of, an actor dreams of. And then I've done at the Singapore Repertory Theatre, and then I've done something with Rivco Art. So I've done quite a lot of theatre. Since I started with, actually I started when I was just 3 or 4 years old. In fact, I was just a couple of months old when my mother would strap me on her back and take me to Prithvi Theatres for the rehearsals. And then when I was about 3 or 4 years old, Prithvi Rajji had made clothes for me. And so in group sequences, I would also go up on stage. So I really imbibed a love for theatre by a process of osmosis, almost. फिर मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि for an actor, there can be no better discipline than working in theatre and cinema, both together. Because each one
will nurture your skills.
देखिए, theatre or cinema or television or anywhere, the process of finding the character whose world you need to inhabit is the same. But except that थिएटर में आपको ज़्यादा वक्त मिलता है बिकॉज यू हैव द रिहर्सल पीरियड. फिल्म में थोड़ा कम मिलता है और टेलीविजन में तो शायद मिलता ही नहीं है. मगर व्हेन यू वर्क विद दीज डिफरेंट मीडियम्स, आई थिंक इट रियली enriches you. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि it's very, very fortunate if you can be an actor that works both, in film and
mediums.
theatre.
Yeah. और अभी हम आ रहे थे तो बड़ा अच्छा किस्सा सुनाया शबाना जी ने. There is a beggar who came to the window and I just gave something. तो शबाना जी ने एक किस्सा सुनाया कि
ये जो है ना बहुत चालाक से जो बच्चे होते हैं, I just admire their spirit and their resilience. तो हुआ ये था कि I was passing by माहिम और वहाँ क्रॉस रोड पे गाड़ी रुकी तो ये 2-4 बच्चे भाग के मेरे पास आए और उन्होंने कहा मैडम आपकी फिल्म कामयाब हो, आपका ये हो, आपका वो हो, आप जो हैं कुछ दीजिए ना, कुछ दीजिए ना. दिस वाज ऑलमोस्ट अबाउट 10 years ago. तो मैंने निकाल के 10 रुपए उनको दे दिए. तो दे लुक्ड एट मी एंड सेड, क्या सिर्फ 10 रुपया आपने दिया? हमने आपको इतनी दुआएं दी हैं, उसका सिर्फ 10 रुपया आपने दिया. वो डिम्पल कपाड़िया मैडम तो 100 रुपए देती हैं. तो मैं बहुत इम्प्रेस हो गई. कुछ महीने बाद मैं डिम्पल से मिली और मैंने कहा डिम्पल तुम उनको 100 रुपए देती हो? तो शी सेड नहीं. तो मैंने कहा उन्होंने ऐसा बोला. शी सेड वो इतने बदमाश हैं, मैंने उनको कुछ ऐसे ही 10-20 रुपए दिए तो उन्होंने कहा शबाना आजमी तो हमको 100 रुपए देती है. I just loved them, so I said अब मैं उनको मिलूंगी तो मैं 500 रुपए दूंगी. I just love them.
it is such a pleasure knowing you and thank you so much for being in the studios with me
Thank
today.
you my dear. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.